18-year-old Thomas Hale hadn't expected his summer holiday to involve rescuing someone from another planet. He'd come to the dusty mining colony on New Argus with his father, an engineer brought in to repair water processors. For Thomas, the settlement was little more than a collection of metal sheds surrounded by endless orange desert. One evening, while exploring the rocky outskirts alone, he spotted movement between two jagged outcrops. It was a girl. No, a young woman, her skin faintly iridescent under the fading light. A pale shimmer ran along her hair, which caught the sunset like strands of molten silver. She was limping, clutching her side, and looking over her shoulder with panic. A deep roar echoed from the canyon behind her. Without thinking, Thomas ran forward, grabbing her arm. "This way," he urged. She looked at him with eyes far too large for a human, pupils like drops of dark glass. "You should not be here," she said in halting Terran, but she let him pull her behind a boulder. Seconds later, a hulking beast padded into view, its 6 limbs braced like a predator ready to strike. Thomas's pulse thundered. He fumbled for his father's emergency flare in his bag, struck it, and hurled it towards the creature. The flare burst in white fire. The beast snarled, retreating into the shadows. The alien girl slumped against the rock. "You saved me," she murmured. "You're welcome," Thomas said, trying to catch his breath. She straightened, dignity returning despite her torn clothing. "I am Lyra of the Shireen. You are youth." Thomas frowned. "I'm 18. Her mouth curved faintly, almost a smile. "By your people's reckoning, perhaps grown. But to mine, you are still a hatchling. My path is not for hatchlings." Thomas didn't know what to say. He'd never been called a hatchling before. She stepped closer, her gaze oddly intense. "If you were older, I could repay this debt properly. Return when the moons of New Argus cross again in your sky. Then you will be ready." Before he could ask what she meant, she moved away, vanishing into the rocks as if she'd melted into the desert air. Thomas returned to the settlement dazed. He told no one, not even his father, about Lyra, but her words lodged in his mind, strange and persistent. "Return when you are ready." Years passed. By 24, Thomas was a licensed pilot working between outposts. He'd seen more of the galaxy than he'd ever dreamed, yet he found himself steering contracts closer and closer to New Argus. He told himself it was coincidence, but deep down, he knew he was waiting. When the astronomical chart showed that the moons of New Argus would align again, a rare event that painted the night sky with silver arcs, Thomas booked a cargo run to the planet. The mining settlement had grown since his youth, but the desert still sprawled endlessly around it. On his first evening, he hiked back to the canyon where he'd once found Lyra. The air was dry, the rocks warm from the day's heat. A voice drifted from above. "You returned." He looked up to see her, standing on a ledge. Time had changed her. Her features sharper, presence stronger, but she was still unmistakable. The moonlight set her silver hair aglow. "You look different," Thomas said. "You look older," she replied, leaping lightly down to stand before him. "Now, perhaps you are ready." "For what?" Her gaze held his. "For the hunt." Thomas blinked. "The hunt?" The Shireen honor those who have saved a life by offering them a place in the first hunt. It is a test of courage and skill. Survive, and you may claim a bond with the one who invited you. Her meaning clicked into place, and his pulse skipped. A bond? Her lips curved faintly again. A binding between lives. But only if you prove yourself. The next dawn, Lyra led him deep into the desert on a sleek, 6-legged creature she called a wren. They traveled for hours until jagged cliffs rose ahead, marking the hunting grounds. A dozen other Shireen were gathered there, tall and elegant, their eyes assessing Thomas with cool interest. Lyra spoke to them in her language, then turned to Thomas. "You will track the trail. It is swift and clever. If it escapes, you fail. If you fall, you die. Simple." Comforting, Thomas muttered. She handed him a weapon, an elegant spear that shimmered faintly. "Do not throw unless you are certain. And remember, the trail is more dangerous corner than free." The hunt began. The desert was no longer silent. Wind hissed through the stones, and faint cries echoed from unseen canyons. Thomas kept low, following tracks half buried in the sand. He spotted the drail once, a lithe, four-legged animal with a mane of quills, but it vanished into a crevice before he could close the distance. Hours passed. The sun dropped lower. Sweat stung his eyes. Then, as he rounded a boulder, the drail lunged, its quills flaring like knives. Thomas reacted on instinct. He dodged, thrusting the spear forward. The creature twisted, but the blade caught its flank. It snarled, snapping jaws inches from his arm. He shoved hard. The spear driving deeper into the drail staggered, then collapsed. Lyra arrived moments later, watching silently as Thomas pulled the spear free. She touched the creature's head briefly, a gesture of respect, before meeting his gaze. You did not run. You faced it. You live. He managed a breathless grin. So does that mean I pass? Her expression softened. It means the bond is yours if you still wish it. That night, under the twin moon's silver light, Lyra performed the bonding ritual. They stood on a high ridge, the wind carrying scents of the desert below. She drew a small blade, nicking her palm before offering it to him. This is how we join our paths, she said. Blood for blood, life for life. Thomas matched her cut, pressing his palm to hers. A strange warmth spread through him, an echo of her heartbeat, a whisper of thoughts not his own. It is done, she said softly. From that moment, Thomas knew he was bound not just to her, but to the wild beauty of New Argus itself. The boy who had once stumbled upon an injured stranger was gone. In his place stood a man whose life had been altered by a promise made under alien skies. And as the moons crossed above, Lyra's faint smile returned. You were worth the wait, hatchling.